Welcome to Path Alchemy, a podcast about relationships, psychology, spirituality, and the hidden patterns that shape our lives. I'm Annie, a psychotherapist, and every week I bring you insights and real stories to help you heal, love, and grow. The podcast is for entertainment, information, and reflection purposes only. It's not a substitute for psychotherapy, medical, or professional advice. Full disclaimer is in the blurb below. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that doesn't even get the dignity of a breakup because technically there was nothing to break. You know the type. The undefined relationship, the situationship, the purgatory of modern romance. It's not quite single, not quite taken. It's the Schrodinger's cat of love. You've been spending nights together, going to weddings together, possibly even sharing a toothbrush. Though God help us, that's a form of intimacy I'd never endorse. And then one day, poof, gone, no explanation, no post-mortem, not even the decency of a fight. And when you're left reading, trying to process what on earth just happened, they hit you with the killer line, but sure, we were never really together. That is the chalk outline on the floor of your heart. The relationship died without ever being born, and you're left grieving a ghost. And let me tell you, this is an Irish speciality. The land of, sure, it'll be grand, and don't be making a fuss. We have a national allergy to confrontation. So instead of defining anything, people sit in grey zones, nodding politely, hoping for the best, and then crying in therapy when it all falls apart. If the English invented the stiff upper lip, the Irish perfected the undefined relationship. It's practically part of the cultural DNA. So, today's case file is the death of the undefined relationship. I'm going to outline the anatomy of the situationship. Buckle up, I'm getting the scalpel out. Let's do a relationship autopsy on this one. So how does an undefined relationship actually present itself in the wild? Well, at first it looks deceptively like the real thing. There's chemistry, there's intimacy, there's late night texts and Sunday mornings together. You might even be introduced to friends, but always vaguely. Never, this is my girlfriend or my boyfriend, or this is my partner. No, it's this is Joe, this is Sarah, this is John, this is Mary. As if you're a new puppy they've just brought along for the ride. And here's how it tends to unfold. Stage 1, the ignition. So the spark is undeniable, the conversations go on till the wee hours and the sex feels charged, and you start to believe you've stumbled into something real. In this phase, the avoidant party is perfectly content because nothing has been defined. Everything is a possibility, everything is potential. Stage 2, the grey zone. This is where the rot sets in. You're sharing beds, maybe even sharing holidays, but nobody has had the talk. You're essentially in a relationship, but without the dignity of a title. And that lack of clarity isn't neutral, it's a power play. The one who resists definition is holding all the cards, while the one who longs for clarity is stuck in emotional limbo. Then we've got stage 3, collapse. Here comes the line, or worse, the silence. We were never really together. Or the WhatsApp blue ticks that never get answered. Or the sudden discovery that they've been seeing other people, as though you had agreed to be a part-time hobby, and you're left standing there grieving something they insist never existed. So let's be honest, this isn't just romance. This is institutionalized. Think of Irish politics. How many half-promises, committees, and we'll look into it dodges have you seen in your lifetime? A lot. You totally get what I'm saying. Exactly. It's the same dynamic. Vagueness masquerading as patience, when really it's cowardice with a little bit of pure. In therapy, I call this the toothbrush test. If your toothbrush is in their bathroom, but your status isn't in their vocabulary, you're in a danger zone. Because intimacy without clarity is not intimacy at all. It's free labor for someone who gets all the benefits without any of the accountability. That's the anatomy. Ignition, grey zone, collapse, fast burn, slow torture, sudden ghost. What's the psychodynamic core of all of this? We'll put it under the microscope and have a look at what's really happening here. Why do otherwise sane, capable adults end up trapped in something that doesn't even have a name? Let's start with the classic duo, the anxious and the avoidant. The avoidant thrives in ambiguity. To them, commitment is like sunlight to a vampire. They'll happily soak up the warmth of connection as long as they can dive back into shadows when it gets too bright. They love the grey zone because it keeps them in control. The anxious person, on the other hand, is the one clinging to crumbs, a half text back, a half plan for next week, a half promise that maybe one day this could be real. They don't just tolerate ambiguity, they suffer through it, convincing themselves that patience is love, when really it's slow self-erasure. So put these two together and you've got the perfect storm. One partner addicted to hope and the other allergic to honesty. Winnicott would call this the full self at work. The anxious partner suppresses the real needs to maintain the attachment. They don't want to rock the boat. So they wear the mask of cool girl, cool guy, easygoing, whatever you want. Inside, though, their true self is screaming for recognition. So Bowlby would remind us that this is about attachment wounds. The anxious partner relives the old terror of being abandoned if they feel they're asking for too much, while the avoidant relives the old terror of being smothered if they let someone too close. Both are prisoners of ghosts from childhood, acting them out in adult beds and on WhatsApp threads. And beyond, he'd say this is an attack on linking. To refuse to name something, to refuse definition, is an attack on reality itself, because naming a bond links experience to meaning. Avoidance won't link, they keep it blurred. They protect their fragile ego by leaving the other person unmoored, untethered. Meanwhile, what fuels the whole circus? Well, the fantasy bond. The idea that closeness feels real, even though it isn't grounded in mutual commitment. It's the anxious partner's drug of choice. They'd rather cling to the fantasy of a slow burn romance than confront the fact that they're actually starring in Waiting for Godot, Tinder edition. This is why undefined relationships are so psychologically brutal. They invite your deepest attachment wounds to the party, then feed them just enough crumbs to keep you hooked. You end up playing house with someone who never even bought the furniture. So, if you want to understand why undefined relationships thrive, look no further than the cultural soil they're planted in. And in Ireland, that soil is fertilised with, sure, it'll be grand, and watered daily with, sure, why would you be making waves or a bit of a fuss? So we're a nation raised on avoidance. From the parish priest to the Taoiseach, clarity has always been treated as optional. Hard truths get smothered under a quilt of politeness, half promises, and committee reports that gather dust. It's no wonder our romantic lives follow suit. We've perfected the art of nodding, smiling, and saying absolutely nothing while our insides collapse. The undefined relationship is just our dating version of a government press release, plenty of words, no actual substance, and everybody pretending that something real is happening. It's not. And here's the kicker. Technology has weaponized our cultural cowardice. WhatsApp blue ticks become a form of torture. Instagram stories let you watch them out drinking while they've left your message undelivered. Ghosting used to require effort. You had to dodge the local pub or avoid the parish hall. And now you can vanish with one tap, leaving the other person haunting their phone like a poltergeist. But don't think this is only Irish. The undefined relationship has gone global. Tinder and Hinge have created a buffet of ambiguity. Why settle when you scroll? Why define when you can keep your options open? We've gone from courtship to situationship in one generation. Still, the Irish flavour is quite unique. Confrontation is considered really vulgar, and directness is labelled as needy. Clarity is treated like a mortal sin, so instead of asking, what are we ask, another pint? And then we wonder why our therapy rooms are so full of people grieving partners they never ever officially had. So let's have a look at the language of collapse. Every undefined relationship has a soundtrack, and it's always the same handful of lines. You could stitch them into a national anthem at this point. I'm not ready for a relationship. Translation, not with you. Read that again. Not with you. They're perfectly capable of being ready when the right person arrives. You just aren't it. And instead of owning that truth, they dress it up as timing. Let's not put labels on it. Translation, I want the benefits without the accountability. Labels mean clarity. Clarity means responsibility. Responsibility means showing up. And that is precisely what they're avoiding. We're just seeing how it goes. Translation, I'm happy to keep seeing how it goes as long as it doesn't require me to commit or tell you the truth. Notice it's never a mutual exploration. It's one person quietly setting the terms and the other anxiously hoping these terms will change. Radio silence, the ghost, the WhatsApp blue ticks, the Instagram story of them out drinking while your message rots unanswered. This one doesn't even bother with language. It weaponizes absence. Nothing says emotional maturity like evaporating mid-conversation. So here's the cruelty. These lines aren't just excuses, they're erasers. They're designed to scrub out the evidence of the intimacy you actually shared. The dinners, the trips, the good morning texts, suddenly they vanish under the claim that, oh, we never had the talk. As if the absence of paperwork cancels out your lived reality. It's a legal loophole for cowards. And the anxious partner? They translate these lines in their own desperate way. Not ready becomes maybe in 6 months. No labels becomes, oh, we're basically together, they just don't like the word. Hope does the heavy lifting, while the other person never breaks a sweat. And this is why the end of a situationship feels like a breakup that nobody will ever recognize. You're left grieving while the world shrugs and says, sure, were you ever even going out? The cost. Undefined relationships cost a lot because they don't end with a bang. They end with a meh, a bit of a shrug, a whatever. And that is what wrecks you. Because how do you actually grieve something nobody will even acknowledge existed? So psychologists call it disenfranchised grief, grief that isn't socially recognised. There's no breakup ritual, no sympathy text, no pint with the lads or the girls, where everyone lines up to slag off your ex. Instead, you're left mourning in secret. When you finally confide in a friend, they say, but sure, were you even going out? And the shame doubles down. Not only are you heartbroken, now you feel like an Egypt for having invested in a ghost. And make no mistake, the body keeps the score. I've had so many people talk to me in therapy, absolutely wrecked with insomnia, hypervigilance, appetite gone, heart racing, when they walk past their not quite ex's house. The nervous system doesn't care whether the relationship was defined, it still registers it as abandonment all the same. The cost is also identity erosion. Every time you swallowed your needs to keep the peace, you chipped away at your own dignity. By the end, you're not just mourning them, you're mourning the version of yourself who settled for crumbs. And then there's the shame. The shame of needing more when they made you feel like less. The shame of telling your friends it ended and watching them struggle to call it a breakup. The shame of realizing you spent months or years playing house with someone who never once claimed you. And this is why in therapy there are so many tears over situationships. People cry harder over those than over marriages sometimes. Because at least a marriage comes with witnesses, paperwork, and it has a funeral when it dies. A situationship dies quickly in the dark and you're left alone at the graveside. Let's do an autopsy report. Cause of death is cowardice, chronic avoidance, and fawning. The manner of death is essentially natural causes in a culture where clarity is treated like a mortal sin. Contributing factors are WhatsApp blue ticks, ghosting, and our collective national skill at not saying the thing that actually needs to be said. So, if someone can't answer the question, that is your answer. You don't need to wait 6 months for them to be ready. You don't need to decode the emoji patterns or the half-made plans. If clarity terrifies them, that's clarity for you. Better clean the wound of truth than the slow rot of ambiguity. If you're in an undefined relationship, define it or end it. Stop calling it fate. Stop calling it timing. Stop calling it complicated. Call it what it is. Avoidance dressed up as romance. So that's today's relationship autopsy. Undefined relationships. The ghost lovers, the situationships, they don't end with a bang, they end with a meh. And you don't let that shrug steal your self-worth. Claim clarity or claim the exit. Either way, claim yourself. And hey, this is a big moment. Choosing yourself is huge. So you're listening to Soul Path Alchemy. The defenses we use to avoid the truth are so varied and so complicated. If you've been here from the start, thank you. If you're new, you've got lots more episodes waiting for you. If this episode resonated, hit follow on Spotify, rate the show, and share it with a friend who's stuck in the grey zone. Every follow and every listen helps. And I just want to say thank you. Wherever you are, have a really great day.